different from counseling, where the counselor is kind of the expert. The coach comes in and says, I believe you have the answers deep inside you, and that if we ask the correct questions and then ask you to make commitments and hold you accountable to those things, that you will be more successful. There's a wonderful piece of neuroscience that says if you ask a question and the person comes up with their own answer, it creates a new neural pathway in the brain, which doesn't happen if you tell someone what to do.
Yes.
And if you've created this new neural pathway, it means the person is more likely to remember and to act on it. Sure. We don't ask a lot of why questions, like why aren't you doing that? That would be more in the realm of counseling. That would be, that's a little different. I mean, for instance, if a client comes to me, there's a form that, I have a 6-page form where we look at every aspect of their life, and they get to rate in all the major areas of their life, spiritual growth, career, relationships, home environment, all areas of their life. We do a very simple thing. I say, what's your level of satisfaction in each of these areas on a scale of 0 to 10? And then we look at those, and a question that I might ask is, what one area, if it were improved, would improve all the other areas of your life the most? And it's not necessarily the lowest scored area of their life.
Yeah.
It could be something in the middle. And then a simple question might be, what one thing could you do this week that would significantly raise that score for you? And that's some of the process by which you start to...
You actually you have a scoring system, sort of?
Yes, and it's a scoring, and it's a self-assessment.
Yes.
So that each person gets to say, what is your level? It's a very basic question. What is your level of fulfillment or satisfaction in all these major areas of your life? And that's how we start to come up with a plan of what areas need to be addressed. And just through this series of questions of, what would this area look like if it were a 10 in your life? Then what can you do to make it a 10 in your life? And it's
Can you give us any concrete examples of this
could I
going on?
coach you for after the break for maybe 5 minutes? Because that would give you the best sense of what we're doing.
I think that would be fun.
I'm afraid. I'm afraid.
You can coach me then, Elizabeth.
All right. No, you can coach me.
All right.
I just don't have much of a future.
We can turn that around.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Well, what?
It's all laid out for me, one or the other.
We'll go ahead and take our break then.
Yeah,
and
let's do
then
that.
We'll have people were curious if people go to life coaches the same way they would like a therapist or like they say gym membership, where you hire them, like somebody might come to you and say like, yeah, I want to subscribe to this many sessions, but then like they don't really follow through or stick with it, like
how does it work?
Yeah, are people really committed to signing on and then following through?
Yeah, typically people sign on, at least with me, and I think a lot of coaches. Dave might have a different setup, but for 3 months, 3, 6 months, 9 months, whatever. But generally starting with 3 to 6 months, and typically there's a discovery session which can last, an hour and a half to 3 hours, where you go over whatever your intake form is, come up with a plan. And then there's subsequent sessions of anywhere from half an hour or an hour each, on a regular basis over the next several months. And I think, what was the other question? It's definitely different than counseling, as I said, because counseling is looking at psychological motivations, and often it's focused on the past and trying to remediate things from the past so that you can move forward in a more psychologically healthy manner. And coaching is much more about what Dave said about your goals and aspirations.
It's a little more, not to trivialize what you do, but it almost sounds like a little bit more surfacey, a little more superficial?
You know,
Yes, it does sound that way anyway.
you know, I think it may sound that way. I think the experience of it is actually very different because people get to experience themselves being powerful in getting very clear about their goals and following through. And there's a really deep sense of empowerment that comes from doing, as opposed from from just understanding things. There are people that have come to me that have been to both counselors and then have come to me as a coach, and they found coaching more effective in actually implementing change in their life in a very direct, tangible fashion than from going to counseling. Counseling can be very valuable. You start to understand yourself better, why you're doing things, but it doesn't necessarily hold you accountable to making the actual changes in your life in the same way that coaching would.
Know thyself, as they say.
Know thyself attuned. Yeah. So I'm coming to you, Elizabeth. I don't have a particular goal in mind, but I'm just like I'm ready to get something done. So
you're at sea. You don't
coach
quite,
me. Yeah. What do I need to do to be more accomplished?
So what's something that you've always wanted to do, but you haven't gotten around to yet?
Oh, God.
Andy's scared of this question. I want to produce my own radio play.
You want to produce your own radio play? Wow.
A play, not a show.
A play.
Okay,
play.
not a weekly show, but a play.
A play, yeah.
Right. And on a scale of 0 to 10, how important is this to you?
It's, let's say, it's a 7.
It's a 7. Okay. So, and what would make it a 10 in its importance?
If I knew that it was going to lead to some sort of lucrative career path, I guess.
Okay.
Actually get produced?
Well, that someone
I should shut up here.
That I would be able to pay my bills in that pursuit, I guess.
Okay, so this is part of a much larger dream of making money from being involved with radio in particular?
Well, I see it as something that would take a lot of my time, and I still have financial obligations, so I guess I would need to know that those obligations would be met, and I would still be able to give it enough time to make it a good quality product.
Okay. And what do you need to do to make this happen?
Additional people with special skills that I don't have.
Okay. And how would you find those people?
I don't know. I don't know if they exist through my current networks. I would assume I could probably find a lot of those people. Whether or not they would also want to commit the time would be the question.
Yeah. So what's one step that you could take, because it sounds like your own particular network may not include those people. What's a step you could take towards finding the people that you need to make this a reality?
Oh my goodness, this is a long process. I would...
She would normally take you on for 6 months, in order to get this thing. You're trying to do it in 5 minutes here.
I would probably have to put out some inquiries online or by word of mouth, I suppose, just to assess the interest of those around me or those I don't know yet that might be interested.
So you would need to put out some inquiries in various places to try and locate the people that did have the skills and the interest, it sounds like, to join you on this venture. Yeah.
Are you listening, those people?
Are you looking for actors, producers, backstage types, the ones who work in the background? Yeah.
So what's a step you could take towards this week towards doing that?
Well, I guess I just mentioned one. I could put an inquiry out on Facebook.
Yeah.
I have a pretty big network there.
Yeah. And you've just said it out loud to all these people
to
listening.
everyone around the world. Yeah.
And is that something you want to commit to?
Sure.
Okay.
This is what you're talking about, isn't it?
Yes. I see the little nervousness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'd like to make a commitment to doing that this week?
Yes, I will say
yes,
I want to make a radio play, and I will commit to doing that.
And is that specific enough? Do you know what you need to say and those types of things?
Please elaborate on what you mean.
Do you know, does it feel handled to leave it like this?
To leave it like this.
That particular step.
You mean as far as like leaving it at just inquiring?
Say more.
Do I need to commit myself to other steps besides just inquiry? Is that what you're asking?
That wasn't, but we could go that direction. What I meant was, you know what you need to do in terms of putting out a Facebook message. You know what you need to say.
I think so.
Good.
Yeah.
That's the piece that's handled.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then, we're getting we're running out of time here. But I can see how this would turn into easily a 3 to 6 month session here, because as we're just talking about these single steps, I'm like, oh my goodness, there's like 5 sub-steps to
doing
this first step.
Yes.
And so you just sit there with the person and sort of break it down piece by piece.
Yes.
Okay.
That's part of it. And, with more time, we would take a little bit more time.
Well, and you were talking earlier about establishing the difference between consulting, where you actually are advising someone and actually giving them potential action steps without them coming up with it on their own.
Yes.
And you are basically just, it seems like the one thing that you're trying to drive is action of some kind, but it's very broad and undefined.
Well, let me just ask you, what was most valuable about what we just did?
You forced me to bring something out of this conceptual state into the actual action steps that it would take.
Yes.
And it makes me realize, like, oh, maybe I do have the time, or maybe I don't. And so then I should probably, after making that realization, kind of go in and reanalyze, is this something that I really want to do based on the fact that I've just understood what really goes into making it happen?
Yes.